Welcome everybody. We're just going to admit everybody before we make a start. And if anybody feels brave and wants to put their cameras on, it's always lovely to be able to speak to faces rather than blank screens. We'd love to see you, but beware, we are recording the session, so you may not want to do that. Give it a few more seconds and then I will do some introductions. Okay, thank you everybody for joining us today. Welcome to our second day of Safeguarding Speaks, this webinar to mark Safeguarding Adults Week. And as I said earlier, the session will be recorded, the first part of the session, and we will then stop the recording so that people feel able to ask questions. So just be mindful of that. Okay. Let's introduce our speakers today. So welcome to Hourglass, Richard Robinson and Veronica Gray from Hourglass. First of all, Richard and Veronica, could you just tell me a little bit about yourselves?
Well, I'll start off. So I'm Richard Robinson. I'm the Chief Exec of Hourglass. I've been here since the end of 2018, and I don't have a background in safeguarding at all. My background was as a journalist who happened to move into charity management and strategy. I think one of the things that I've been most focused on over the last 4 years with the charity is trying to reshape the charity so that we are able to be more impactful and more focused on saving and changing lives. And that's one of the reasons why we rebranded back in 2020 from Action on Elder Abuse to draw a line under the past and move on with a new image and a new focus. So that's me.
Brilliant, thank you. And Veronica.
Hi everyone, I'm Veronica Gray. I am Deputy CEO and Policy Lead for Hourglass. I had to look it up, but I've been with the charity since May 2015. Time flies when you're having fun. I'm based in a town in Northern Ireland, in Newry, a small town in Northern Ireland, where it's actually cold, really bright today, and thankfully not raining for a change. So it's great to be here.
Lovely, lovely. I love those winter days instead of the drab rain that we've got up in the north today. Could you tell me a little bit about what Hourglass do, their services, what you're all about for people that have never heard of Hourglass?
Well, I can start off with telling you a little bit about what Hourglass came from and what we do, and then I'll hand over to Veronica to give you an idea of our services. So actually Hourglass came from Age Concern. We were based in Age Concern's offices right the way back in 1993 in central London, and we were formed by Sally Greengross, who was the chair of Age Concern UK for a very long time, sadly passed away in July this year. She's been our patron for all of those years. And it actually came from a very obvious hole in the offering globally, not just in the UK. Sally attended a meeting in Mexico where they looked at how older people were supported across the globe. And one of the things that was missing even back in 1993 was elder abuse and how we work to save and change the lives of older people suffering abuse or neglect or discrimination in some way. So we started in 1993. By 97, we'd launched our helpline. And now we have a team of just close to 30, and we cover England, Scotland, Wales, and Northern Ireland from originally just covering London, the boroughs of London back in 93. So we take around 15,000 calls, contacts a year, and many of those turn into cases. And over the last couple of years particularly, our services have changed fairly radically. Veronica.
As Richard said, the helpline was established in 1997 and it's been running very well ever since. But from 2015, we've had a helpline service available in directly in each of the 4 nations of the UK. The helpline in March this year went to a 24/7 operation. So for the first time, we've been able to support people through the night, evenings, weekends, bank holidays. So this will be our first Christmas with our 24/7 service. So it'll be very interesting for us to see how that works. Certainly our numbers have almost doubled every week in terms of the calls. And in some cases, our evening calls and nighttime calls overtake the number that we did during the day. Other ways people can contact the helpline is we have an instant message service on our website. That's available 9 to 5, but we often see conversations coming through instant message from across the globe, which is really fascinating. It just shows the need for information and advice that's out there. We also have a chatbot on our website, and I'm forgetting one, Richard.
Yeah, we have a chatbot. We have the knowledge bank, which I think is probably very useful for those people on this webinar. The knowledge bank is the only Europe-wide information around all of the different research elements, services for those older people suffering with that scourge of abuse, whether it's neglect, whether it's financial abuse, physical, psychological. There's elements on there about self-neglect as well, and discrimination. And I think the thing for us is that what we've done is we've tried to create a knowledge bank that gives as much possible detail as possible, but also there are ways of looking where your nearest support is, and laws and legislation research, including our own research that we've done quite a lot of. As Veronica says, we have email as well, which we've seen a real rise in our email, as well as our text services. And certainly during the pandemic, we saw a lot of use for our text services, SMS. And Veronica, you'll know about the impending launch of the apps that we have as well, which I don't know quite so much about.
Yes, we have a refreshed knowledge bank, which I was actually just looking at before I joined you this morning or this afternoon. And we have a refreshed app that we will be launching again during Safer Aging Week. I suppose our mission is to give people as much information to arm them with the knowledge of what abusive older people is, because we still have this real issue where people don't even know abusive older people exist. And with the prevalence of abusive older people, we're constantly having to battle against those mindsets and to change hearts and minds around this issue. So if we give people all of this information, tell them that this is happening, but also arm them with resources to make good decisions, and also give them as many entry points to the charity as possible. So when a call comes through to our helpline, we then have a number of ways that we deal with each individual call. It might be something very straightforward and simple that the information officer there and then can deal with, and that's very simple. But mostly it's more complicated than that, and that's where the call then will be referred on to our community response team, which includes casework, safer aging check-in, and also more recently our IDFA services. So that's sort of the caller journey, and we'll be talking a lot about that during Safer Aging Week to let people know and give them a real sense and understanding of how Hourglass walks that journey to recovery hand in hand with them.
So that IDFA service that Veronica mentions, that's one of our biggest success stories in recent years, really, is to work with the police and crime commissioners across England and Wales to put in place these independent domestic violence advocates, or IDFAs. You will also heard of independent sexual violence advocates as well. So we trialled IDFAs for older people in Sussex in 2021 and rolled out the service throughout this year. We're now doing the same in London, in Thames Valley, and in Cambridgeshire and in Surrey. And there'll be others across the UK. We're looking at funding our own IDFA service in Northern Ireland. The PCC money only goes as far as England and Wales, but we want to push that as hard as we can. And the unique thing about IDFAs are that they enable us to do face-to-face tailored support plans for victim survivors, and also to work hand in hand with families and the community around them. So whilst we only deal with 15,000 people a year, when I say only, there are thousands and thousands of other people that feel the effects of our services across the whole of the UK due to the nature of the tailored approach that we take.
Certainly at Age UK, what we've seen is a big rise in referrals regarding older people that are experiencing all forms of abuse, but particularly domestic abuse. That is a particularly key area that we're seeing. Much of that's because we've done a lot of work around raising our staff awareness to spot those signs. And a real frustration for our team is, having the services to refer to. So we've just started this new partnership with Hourglass, which will be launching in Safer Ageing Week, where the safeguarding team will be able to make direct referrals to Hourglass rather than just signposting people. Can you talk a little bit about that? Obviously, I can probably chip in as well, because I've been speaking to Maggie in Hourglass about how we're going to actually implement that. But we're going to be launching that at the start of Safer Ageing Week. So if you could maybe just talk through a little bit about what that might look like.
Well, I can start, and Veronica can explain to everybody why I went wrong, which is normally how we work. So the Age UK relationship with Hourglass is almost going full circle back to where we were in 1993, because Hourglass, or Action on Elder Abuse, was always Age Concerns referral route for older people that have been abused in whatever form. And we see that as a way of enabling Hourglass to work with the cases that Age UK have and provide a pathway through to that tailored care package or tailored care plan, and look at the variety of routes and services that we have both in-house and with our own partners to look at that link between prevention right the way through to education and recovery, utilising the programmes that we have, but also utilising for the Age UK's own in-house sort of services. So we see it as a seamless link. We are a relatively small charity, but I think we are fairly unique in the way that we deal with some of the most horrific cases of abuse, and it makes it a very challenging and a very emotional role. And I think that's one of the reasons why we're quite an unknown charity. Our profile is quite low across the UK, and that's because we focus so much on finding those pathways and developing those tailored care plans that actually we've only started doing a lot of PR and marketing and lobbying over relatively recent years. So we try to put those victim survivors first. And I think that's still our ethos now as an independent charity. Veronica, that will work quite well with our helpline and our other services as well, I guess.
Yes, absolutely. I suppose the key thing for me in developing this partnership, which I think is brilliant, especially as Hourglass is coming up to its 30th anniversary next year, I think to have come full circle is great. I suppose the way I see any good partnership is to own your own. So as Richard said, we're very focused on what we do, how we do it, delivering a quality service, bespoke and tailored to the needs of that individual victim. And then once we do that, we can look after that bit, and then we can refer.
Okay, and the other thing,
Age UK.
You went a little bit haywire for a second there, Veronica, on the feed.
Oh, sorry.
That's all right. But I think the other thing that's worth pointing out is that unlike with many other charities across the age sector, because there are so many organisations and so many charities that deal with age across the UK, Hourglass has a very relatively small place on that care pyramid. And you know where I'm going with this, Veronica. please describe to everybody the care pyramid, because you do it so much better.
I suppose in the charity we talk a lot about the care pyramid. So if we imagine a pyramid and the bottom tier, it's sliced in three, and the bottom tier is green. So that's where most older people are, and those older people are safe and secure, living independently, might have a slight need for support, but generally speaking, that's where we want all older people to be. But unfortunately, due to whatever circumstance, some older people move into that amber part of the pyramid. Now, it's a lesser number of people, but they're going to require more support. And then at the top of the pyramid is the red, is the tip of the triangle, it's the red zone. And again, we're seeing more older people, or sorry, less older people in that cohort, but they are the ones that need the most support. And that's where Hourglass sort of comes into our own. That's the part of the pyramid where we see our role, that very unique support that older people need for a longer period of time in many cases, in order to get them back into amber and ideally then back into green.
So that's why a partnership with Age UK works so well, because most of our services exist at the very top of the amber zone, and almost exclusively then within the red zone. Whilst most of what Age UK does very successfully exists within the amber and the green. And what we want to do is work hand in hand with Age UK to provide that seamless link between those red services. The only areas where we fall into those orange services is clearly from an information perspective. When somebody phones us, whether it's as small as where's my local Citizens Advice Bureau, but we do a safer aging check-in service where there are people at particular higher levels of risk due to their circumstances, where we've done this check-in service, which has worked very successfully over the past couple of years. But yeah, so I think it should be a match made in heaven in lots of ways.
Let's hope so. Yeah, and the plan is that we will initially start with referrals being directed through the safeguarding teams. At the moment, any team, whether they give advice, whether they deal with it at source or need our expertise, they will always come through to the safeguarding team to report to us. So initially, we will pilot that referral process through our team, and we'll have monthly meetings with Hourglass to kind of review how that's going, and we will learn from that. In an ideal world, we will get, have that pilot scheme run right at source, but we're a little bit of a way off that. But that's hopefully the vision. In terms of, here at the webinar, we've got lots of people, lots of familiar faces from National Age UK, but we've also got lots of local partners who are working, face to face directly with people who may be in your areas where you've got IDVA services, where you've got your community hubs. They might be in areas more in Northern England and Central England where you don't have those services. But what can we, from Age UK, we know we have a wide reach, we know we have quite a lot of influence. What can we do to help Hourglass, not only with that partnership, but also with your campaigning?
Okay, well, to start off with, Carrie, it's worth pointing out that whilst we only have IDFAs in the south of England, our community response teams are across the length and the breadth of the UK. So the IDFAs themselves are at the moment just in the south of England and London, particularly home counties. But the community response service, which is almost exactly the same as IDFA, is available countrywide. So the only difference between the community response and the IDFA is that the IDFAs have been funded by the police and crime commissioners, and the community response team is funded by Hourglass and our donation. So we provide the same service across the whole of the UK.
Okay, thanks for that.
I think one of the biggest campaigning things for us is, and I know that lots of people on this webinar will understand immediately these points, is that we have a real issue where there's a complete lack of understanding about the older person being the victim. It's almost as if there is a national sort of myth that's been built that domestic abuse ends at 65 and nothing happens, and then people live in tranquil, live a tranquil life. And actually, I hate to say it, but the elder abuse is almost at epidemic levels now across all 4 nations that we support. And likewise, in the 5th nation that we're looking to support, which is the Republic of Ireland, the levels likewise across all 5 nations are reaching horrific levels. Now, you might ask why that's the case. And I think one of the reasons why it's the case is because the levels of funding that come from the 4 governments, the 5 governments actually, towards levelling the playing field so that all of those areas of abuse, those horrible areas of abuse, child abuse, domestic abuse in a universal way, and even the abuse of animals, are actually given far more government funding from all 4 nations than elder abuse ever has. And to give you an understanding of the levels that we're talking about, one very well-known child abuse charity receives the equivalent of £220 for every call that they receive from the government. A very well-known animal abuse charity receives over £150 per call equivalent. And yet an elder abuse charity, the only one in the UK, receives the equivalent of £20 per call. And so therefore, to keep a staff going and motivated and focused across the whole of the UK to deliver this. So the message that I would get out to everybody on this call is we need to strive in a society where every victim is equal, no matter what their background is, their ethnicity, their sexual orientation, their age, most importantly to this call. So we are in the process of doing a open letter to the Prime Minister, which you can see, which you'll soon be able to see on our website. We are hourglass.org, which is calling for parity across all forms of abuse. And to be really clear, we're not suggesting that the child abuse charities, the universal domestic abuse charities, or the animal abuse charities don't deserve the funds they do. They deserve every single penny they get. All we're calling for is parity. Now, likewise, the other thing that we campaign for often is legislation changes across the 4 nations that enable our most vulnerable generation to be given a lot more protection, and for offenders to be for that vulnerability to be taken into account. So it's a really big issue for us, and that's why we started with Safer Ageing Week, which we would appreciate everybody's support on. This is the 3rd year, and actually it's very much Veronica's baby, so I'm going to stop talking and let her continue to talk about Safer Ageing Week.
Yes, I just realised we've mentioned it a few times and not explained what it actually is. It's a week-long targeted campaign that started 2 years ago. It's been growing, it's been bigger every year. Throughout the course of the 7 days, we will have a range of different activity. We will be making announcements, new services, opening. Just to give you a flavour of what we have in store for this year, we will be announcing new charity patrons, all from the House of Lords. We will be announcing our partnership, obviously, with Age UK and other corporates that we have managed to find support with. Excuse me. We will also be releasing new policy briefs around poverty and its effect on older people. Obviously, I'm most excited about the launch of the Safer Ageing Index, which will be Northern Ireland specific. The Safer Ageing Index we've been working on for a while, and it's basically a council by council area look at where it's safe to age in Northern Ireland and where it's not so safe. So we've looked at a range of factors. We've looked at the political situation, we've looked at media and across different crime stats. So we are able to pull together almost like a balanced scorecard of where it's safe to age in Northern Ireland. how we will use that to lobby and to influence and to campaign for more and better for older people. But we will also use it in a way that we will be able to say to a council, look, you're doing well in terms of having a positive aging strategy, but your implementation needs to be quicker. And here's how we can help you. So it's got a lot of different uses. And over the next few months, we will be releasing Safer Aging, the Safer Aging Index for England, Scotland, and Wales. So it's a really exciting time for the charity. But Safer Aging Week will culminate then in delivery of our open letter to the Prime Minister. We're currently sitting at just under 200 signatures to that, and it is growing. We have some really key names who have come on board to give their support to our call for all victims.
It's worth pointing out that those 200 names are just, generally speaking, at this moment in time, representatives of the 4 governments of the UK, plus academics and third sector partners. So we haven't yet released this to the general public because what we wanted to do was to show that there was a political spectrum of support. And I'm delighted to say that every side of the political debate have signed this letter, which is almost unheard of. And what we now need to do is to ramp up that pressure. And I think the other thing to add to Veronica's response was just to say also that what we want to do is we want to see that by maybe May next year, that there will be a Safer Aging Index that will be an annual sort of sense check for not only the 4 nations, but also the counties, constituencies, by postcode even in years to come. And now this will be the first of its kind. And I think Safer Aging Week, which, as I say, is the 5th of December, gives us an ideal opportunity to show that detail and that rank scorecard. So yes, it's really exciting, and a lot of plaudits to Veronica on this call, who's shaped all of this. We have come a long way in 4 years.
Thank you. I think we'll end our conversation now and end the recording. George.